Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm Sarah Stewart, I'm the minister here. It is wonderful to have all of you with us this morning. I'm leading worship, our broadcast tech. Kate Sheehan is our head usher this morning. Here at First Unitarian Church, we strive in loving fellowship to honor the sacred, connect with each other, and serve justice. We are a welcoming congregation. Whatever your age, race, class, nationality, sexual orientation, or gender identity, we are delighted to have you with us today. For those of you who are joining us online, you can like this video to help others find us and subscribe to our channel to find more content. If you're in the Worcester area, we warmly invite you to join us in person any Sunday at 10:30. The newsletter is the best way to stay in touch with everything we do as a church. You can go to firstunitarian.com and click subscribe to our newsletter at the bottom of any page. We have a special social hour following the service today. All the different groups and committees in the congregation have set up tables in our church parlor through either of these doors at the front of the sanctuary. It's our opportunity fair. And at these tables, you can learn about groups that meet for fun, how to join the choir, how to get involved in the mission and work of the church. Some of the tables have goodies to hand out. We have snacks and coffee, and I hope everybody will stay for our opportunity fair today. The very first table you'll come to if you go out this door is the welcome table. And there, if you're a newcomer, please do stop by. There are friendly volunteers there. We have a gift bag for you, and you can also sign up for our newsletter there. I have an additional announcement this morning. Does anyone notice what's missing in the sanctuary today? Wiring, I heard it. Our project to hide the wiring that allows us to live stream and fully connect our 2 organ consoles and our 2 sets of pipes is completed, thanks to generous giving and volunteer efforts that made this project possible. I especially want to offer my thanks for a major gift in memory of David Bayer and a lot of volunteer work by Matt Ron. I love the clapping and all of the joy for our music and our volunteers and generosity. I will ask you to hold further applause until the end of the service, and we can thank all of our musicians and their efforts at that time. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I invite you into this sacred moment to make a connection to the holy, to one another, to the spirit of mutuality in this place, to the souls that have worshiped here for centuries past and who will worship here in centuries to come. May you risk the connection that overcomes loneliness. May we return to the rituals of connection, being of service to others, reaching out to friends, walking with a companion, kindness to self and others, creativity, online friendships, caring for an animal. May these sacred practices show us the face of the holy in ourselves and in others. Amen.
Ruby is lighting our chalice this morning.
In the spirit of love,
we light this chalice. Please rise in body or spirit to renew the covenant of this church with the words printed in your order of service and appearing on your screen. In the love of truth and in the spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all. Opening hymn is number 347 in your gray hymnals, Gather the Spirit.
morning. I'm Samantha, the Director of Faith Development, and I want to, in case you aren't aware, Abby's over there at the story table, getting ready for a tale of the day. I wanted to let you know a few things that are happening in Faith Development today and the following weeks, because it's super exciting what we are going to be doing together. Faith Development classes begin today, and downstairs in the Landers area, we have the nursery, we have Soul Matters for our K through 5th graders, and we also have Neighboring Faiths, which Abby and Avery are leading for our 6th through 9th graders, and those are going on trips to different houses of worship, and it's really a wonderful experience. So today is the first class, and if you want to learn more, we're at the Opportunity Fair, or come find one of us. Today at 12, we have our teacher assistant training, and that is for all high schoolers to come find out how you can help out in Sunday school classes and throughout the church and see what it looks like to step out of the learning process into the facilitating and teaching process. Next Sunday is our first trip for neighboring faiths. We're going to the Holden Street UUCW to see a different Unitarian Universalist service. And we also have our BICOTA, which is our middle school youth group, and our YRU2, our high school youth group, meetings next week as well. And then there's more. Dungeons and Dragons is also starting again on October 1st. So if you were in the game last year, come back. And if you haven't been, come join. It's great. It's for all ages, and it's a really great time. And lastly, on October 15th is our first jam band rehearsal, which Amanda will be leading, and Amanda's over in our choir. And we have 2 performances during the worship service, so come find out more. Anyone is welcome, all ages again, and faith development is for everybody. And then without further ado, we have A Color of His Own by Lionni. Parrots are green, goldfish are red, elephants are gray, pigs are pink. All animals have a color of their own, except for chameleons. They change color wherever they go. On lemons, they are yellow. On heather, they are purple. And on the tiger, they are striped like tigers. One day, a chameleon who was sitting on a tiger's tail said to himself, "If I remain on a leaf, I shall be green forever. And so I, too, will have a color of my own." With this thought, he cheerfully climbed on the greenest leaf. But in the autumn, the leaf turned yellow. And so did the chameleon. Later, the leaf turned red, and the chameleon too turned red. And the winter winds blew the leaf from the branch, and with it, the chameleon. The chameleon was black in a long winter's night. When spring came, he walked out into the green grass. And there, he met another chameleon. He told his sad story. "Won't we ever have a color of our own?" he asked. "I'm afraid not," said the other chameleon, who was older and wiser. "But why don't we stay together? We will still change color wherever we go, but you and I will be alike." And so they remained side by side. They were green together and purple. And purple and yellow. And red with polka dots. And they lived happily ever after. Thank you. my children and youth for going down the stairs to the Landers room. And if you're in 6th through 9th grade, you're going to be joining over in the Myrick room, and everyone else is going to be in the Landers area with me. Thank you.
Our responsive prayer is number 468 in your gray hymnals. We need one another. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid. We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of success when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another in the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and stand again. We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. Please continue your own thoughts and prayers in silence. In this time of prayer and meditation, we share the joys and sorrows of our church with one another. One among us offers a prayer of grateful joy following last weekend's amazing Ferry Beach church trip. The feelings of community with friends, old and new, in a setting of natural beauty are always worth the travel time. Gene lights a candle for a loving and blessed birthday to his wife, Ginny. Ellen O'Neill Waite lights a candle of prayer, light, and love for Billy and Liz Hennessy as they hang on for Billy's wild health ride. Jeff lights a candle for Terry's friend Bob, who is at Mass General. And Abby and Ken light a candle in memory of Maria Carrero, who died last evening of cancer. We hold these prayers of joy and healing and memory in our hearts. We know there are those joys and sorrows which go unspoken among us. And so we reach out to one another in compassion as we say together the prayer of Jesus. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Our ministries at First Unitarian Church continue to thrive because of your support. Once a month, we are privileged to share our collection with an organization whose mission is aligned with ours. This morning we are sharing our collection with Friendly House, and I believe we have a volunteer to share with us about their work.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Is that good? Okay. Good morning. My name is Trish Appert. I'm the executive director at Friendly House, and I'm very honored to be here with you this morning, and thank you. I want to say a few words about Friendly House. As I spoke with Liz Gustafson about how Worcester is really unique and how many of its institutions have been around for over 100 years, but many, many families have been able to stay and grow and continue to have their children live here too. So as I talk about Friendly House, I know that there's probably many of you who know part of Friendly House already. So please bear with me and I'll just give a little bit more of the context. Friendly House was founded in 1920 as a settlement house, which the model was from the late 1800s in London about serving the poor, being among them, and really bringing in immigrants into part of civic life. And so that carried on in Worcester. Worcester has always been a welcoming city and one of opportunities for immigrants. And so remarkably, a lot of the programs, although they have changed many times and expanded over the years, are very similar in some regards to what we were doing 100 years ago. We have four main areas of the work we do. The first one is youth development and programs, and this is where people usually tell me, yes, I grew up playing basketball at Friendly House. We have a basketball league, we have an after-school program, we do teen development, and we have a summer program. And while it's one of our smaller programs in the organization, it is the one that has kind of has the childhood memories and people either dropping their kids off or being kids. And many parents who have gone to those programs have been able to send their kids there. The second area is really food security, and we have two different types of programs. The first is really, I think, not very well known. It's the Child Meals Program. We have two people who come in at 4 o'clock in the morning and cook and prepare lunches and breakfasts and dinners, and then package them up and send them out on 2 of our vans to all of different youth serving organizations across the city. So that's one program that no one comes to Wall Street for. And the other, we have 4 food pantries. Everybody knows what food pantries do, but we have 4 of them in the city of Worcester. One at Wall Street, one in Plumley Village off Lincoln Street, and one in Quinsig Village, the community center. And then the last one is at the Green Island Neighborhood Center in Crompton Park. Our biggest division is the housing for homeless families. And that is where I know this church supports mightily the In the Hour of Need shelter. We have 3 different shelters. And then we have, one is near Elm Park, one's on the west side, and one is on Grafton Hill. And the rest, we have 100 units that are scattered in apartments across Worcester that offer shelter, transitional housing, and a few are permanent supportive housing for families where the head of household has a disability. The final program area is the one that I think about as really being the core to Friendly House, and it has actually existed probably in some manner since its founding, and that is our social services department. The social services oversee the food pantry, but they do much more. We have 8 case managers. All are bilingual or multilingual, and they speak Spanish, French, Haitian, Creole, Portuguese, Albanianship, and 4 West African dialects. So it's a really wonderful team. And we're, I think, maybe the only place or one of the few places in Worcester where anyone with a problem can walk in to our building and see a caseworker who can speak to them in their language and help them with housing or eviction or homelessness, basic immigration, form preparation, translation, accessing benefits, basically whatever the problem is, we're going to solve it with you, or we're going to find some other organization that can help you. And so that's really, I think what I wanted to talk to you about a little bit today is the rise that we've seen since last summer, not the past, but in 2022, and the dramatic rise of migrant family. Ways for the city of Worcester a last resort, and we've been able to place people in hotels. People would just arrive from the airport with their suitcases at our front door. And from an organization that was seeing maybe 40 or 50 people coming in every day, it's been well over 100 every day. And we have served over 245 families. Can multiply that by 3 or 4 to get the kind of full amount of people that we've worked with. So these families are absolutely in need of shelter, but they're in need of food and clothing and language supports and transportation and permission to work legally in the country to gain a better foothold. So we're really excited that we've been able to respond to this, but not only that, we've been able to work closely with the city of Worcester, other nonprofit organizations doing this work, and the faith community, which has been really, really amazing. So I know that I spoke to someone about the Haitian Task Force. There's so many groups that come together that Friendly House is part of. And I just want to say that we're really excited because we've just hired a New Americans coordinator. So it's the Office of New Americans, but it's really drawing together all the different parts of the community to be able to help families kind of gain a foothold, do what we've been doing for a long time. And that only happens with the rest of you. So I'm very grateful to be here, and I'll be in the back for a little bit to answer any questions, and thank you again for your partnership.
Thank you. The ushers will receive the morning's offering, or you may scan the QR code in the order of service. If you're online, you can text the number on your screen or go to firstunitarian.com and click Give Online at the top of any page. Thank you for your support of this mission. Everything we do as a church is thanks to your support. I invite your generous contributions for this good work in our community. the story of a Judean woman named Naomi, who married a man in a neighboring country, Moab. They lived in Moab and raised 2 sons, who in turn married Moabite women. Then tragedy struck, and Naomi's husband and 2 sons died. She resolved to return home to her people in Judea and assured her daughters-in-law that they, too, should go home to their Moabite families of origin and try to marry again. But one of her daughters-in-law, Ruth, insisted on staying with Naomi and going back with her to Judea. Ruth said, "Do not press me to leave you or turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die. There will I be buried. May the Lord do thus and so to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you."
Help me, Lord, help me, Lord. Help me, Lord, help me, Lord. Help me find the common ground. Find the common ground, yes, the common ground. Between the high and the low, between the poor and the rich, between the old and the young, between the black and the white. Help me find the common ground. Find the common ground. Yes, the common ground. Between the shouting and the silence. Between the pound and the free. Between the grief and the joy. Between the heart and the mind. Help me, Lord. Open us, Lord. Open us, Lord. Lord, guide us to that meeting place. Lord, guide us to that meeting place. We can see each other, hear each other, care for each other. Where we can sing together, work together. On the common ground. Help me, Lord. Open us, Lord. Come, let us be together on the common ground.
Our second reading is from a TED Talk by Brené Brown, one of the most watched TED Talks ever. Brown is a researcher studying human connection. There was only one variable that separated people who have a strong sense of love and belonging and the people who really struggle for it. And that was the people who have a strong sense of love and belonging believe they're worthy of love and belonging. What those people had in common was a sense of courage. They had the compassion to be kind to themselves first and then to others, because it turns out we can't practice compassion with other people if we can't treat ourselves kindly. And they had connection as a result of authenticity. They were willing to let go of who they thought they should be in order to be who they were, which you absolutely have to do for connection. The other thing that they had in common was this: they fully embraced vulnerability. They believed that what made them vulnerable made them beautiful. They didn't talk about vulnerability being comfortable, nor did they really talk about it being excruciating. They just talked about it being necessary. They talked about the willingness to say, I love you first. The willingness to do something where there are no guarantees. They're willing to invest in a relationship that may or may not work out. That was fundamental. In the story of Naomi and Ruth, Naomi has lost her husband and her sons, and in her grief, she prepares to return to her people. Ruth has lost her husband, one of those sons, and could choose to go back to her parents' house. Whenever they speak, one of them is speaking in an adopted language. Their customs, their idioms, their expectations, they're different, based in different cultures. What holds them together? I see these two women standing there together on this precipice of loneliness, not wanting to give up this chosen family, but not knowing at all what the future holds. They are possessed by terrible uncertainty, and they're given a choice between safety and radical openness. Loneliness crowds in on them from every side. Can we stand with them for a moment and feel what they feel? Maybe that's not such a hard thing to do, because if the statistics are to be believed, many of us feel the loneliness that surrounds Naomi and Ruth. The Surgeon General has declared loneliness an epidemic in America, citing some of the following facts. 50% of Americans experience measurable loneliness at any given time. Over 20% of American adults say they often or always feel lonely or socially isolated. Lonely people, of course, have an outlet that they didn't have 20 years ago, and the omnipresent veneer of community available on our phones. But research has found that social media use does not fulfill our need for real human connection. It gives us the dopamine hit of being with another person, but without the actual friendship and connection that comes with it. And of course, the loneliness epidemic is not the only epidemic. There has been this other one, the COVID pandemic, which drove us all away from each other and away from our routines and our habits of connection for over a year. It's no wonder we feel lonely. Researchers have found that loneliness, the feeling of isolation and disconnection, which can occur when we are objectively socially isolated, but can also happen if we're in a crowd but feel alone, that loneliness creates a sense of danger and uncertainty. It just wakes up our animal brain. Animals like to be together. I lead a book group here at church, and for the book we just finished reading this last week by Sonia Shaw, which is all about the migration of people and animals, I read about the discoveries of researcher Worcester in the 1930s. Quote, a group of goldfish, he found, can survive in a liter of poisoned water for 507 minutes. A single goldfish, in contrast, can survive the same water for only 182 minutes. A clump of worms snuggled together can survive UV radiation 1.5 times longer than a single worm that slithers off on its own. Animals prefer to be together, and we are animals who prefer to be together. But then something happens in our animal lives. A global pandemic, say, or the loss of a spouse, or retirement, or a new job, a new school, a shift in our brain chemistry. And suddenly we're not sure how to be with people anymore. The very same brain chemicals that drive us to connection also inspire us to hide. We feel the strongest pull to connect or to hide when we hover on that precipice of loneliness, standing at that decision point with Naomi and Ruth. I need connection, but will I connect with this new person, or what will happen if we take our relationship deeper? What if I open myself up to try to make a new friend and I'm shut down? Is this too much? Would I just be better off at home by myself? Maybe scrolling social media, where I can have the illusion of the connection without vulnerability. It won't surprise you to learn that I believe that church is an antidote to loneliness. One of the wonderful things about any church is that it gives you something to do with other people that doesn't necessarily require effervescence or an ability to make small talk, although we have coffee hour if you want to try that out. Activities are planned. They're often the same from week to week or month to month. There's something that we can all do together without having to make it happen ourselves. And of course, we have affinity groups. We have opportunities to work side by side together on a volunteer project. But religion on its own, it doesn't necessarily combat loneliness. Even our tradition, which has its roots in Puritanism, has not always seen this as a goal. Creating connection, choosing to build a beloved human community, it requires a certain attitude toward religion and a certain understanding of the work of the holy in our lives. One of the root systems of our church is Puritanism, which believed, among other things, that the only thing that really mattered in the entire universe was God. A God who had chosen at the beginning of time just a few humans in all of eternity to admit into heaven. A God who, for his own inscrutable reasons, and those early Puritans, their God was definitely male, had decided to bless a few and condemn the rest of humanity to hell forever. And a people who, if they were being faithful to that God, glorified his saving and his damning, praised his mercy and his cruelty, for his ways were not their ways, and his justice not their justice. The progenitor of this theology, John Calvin, believed that human beings could trust no relationship other than their relationship with this distant and judging God. Spouses, friends, children, colleagues, people on the street, the connections, love, support, and mutuality that people felt with each other, Calvin thought that all of that was an illusion and not to be trusted. Loneliness was a gift. Salvation was worth the misery. But over time, in America, some of these descendants of these Puritans began to have other ideas. Some, like our Unitarian forebears on that half of our name, the half of Unitarian Universalism, began to believe that human beings were more like God than previously thought, and that religion could help develop goodness in us so that we would grow in character and kindness. The beneficial connections between people were not a distraction from God, they were evidence of God's presence in our hearts. And then some of our other forebears, those Universalists, the other half of our name, rejected the notion of God's damnation at all. If God was perfect, then God was love, they thought. And a perfectly loving God could not turn away from people. They listened to the ancient words of Jesus. God is like a loving parent, a good shepherd, a generous employer. Ours standing in the doorway of loneliness, like Naomi and Ruth. They were people just like us, and just like us, they were hovering between that need to connect and the need to hide. John Calvin chose the safety of hiding. Only God knows us truly, so God is our only worthwhile relationship. But those early Unitarians and Universalists chose connection. It is only through other people that we know the sacred, since, as the Bible says, none of us has seen God, and if we do not love our siblings who we have seen, then how can we love God whom we have not seen? If we do not connect to the people in our daily lives, then how can we hold all of humanity in compassion and loving regard? I know that every one of you has at some time stood in that doorway, felt yourself on the edge of that precipice between connection and retreat. Sometimes we can will ourselves into connection by just deciding to. I'll join this group, I'll introduce myself to my neighbors, I'll choose to join an activity instead of watching TV at home. But sometimes it feels like the essence of who we are is at risk, and it's nearly impossible to reach out. I've certainly felt that way. My two wonderful children are now both teenagers. But when my husband and I had been married for a few years, before either of the boys were born, we lost a pregnancy to miscarriage. Even though my husband, my parents, and my friends were loving and supportive, I have never felt so alone. I never felt so alone in my grief. Alone in feeling that my body had betrayed my husband's and my hopes for a family. Alone that there was nothing obviously wrong with me, and hardly anybody even knew I had been pregnant. Alone that I knew a miscarriage was very common, and that I was likely to have healthy pregnancies, so I didn't even have the right to feel bereft. Alone that many women can't ever get pregnant, or are pregnant when they don't want to be, or don't have the privilege of access to birth control or abortion if they want it, and that I didn't really have anything to complain about. I felt that my grieving left a mark on me that everyone could see, while at the same time as though I had to hide what was wrong with me. Nothing was even wrong with me. None of this made sense. Loneliness never does. I wasn't disconnected or uninvolved, but it was not my hiding, but my risking connection that saved me. First, there was the still small voice that came to me and told me I had to stop sitting on my couch day after day and make an effort to see people again. And second was one of those people, for people are how we know the holy, who reached out of her own old grief to tend to mine. It was so simple. I went for a walk with a friend, a woman a little older than I was, whose son was a teenager. She asked me that question we all ask each other, "How are you?" And I took the risk and answered honestly, and told her about our miscarriage. And she said, "That happened to me," and gave me a hug. That was it. She told me more. She shared her story. But it was the connection and the hug that made the difference. I felt that someone had seen me in my loneliness and found me worthwhile anyway. Perhaps she felt lonely in her memory of her pregnancy loss. But we each risked something with each other and connected when we could have stayed hidden. Researcher Brené Brown has studied the value of this kind of authenticity, risk, and even awkwardness in creating real connections between people. She says that real connections between people happen when people risk shame and rejection to be authentic and open with another person. She calls this attitude wholeheartedness. She says that the only pathway to connection is through sharing our true selves with one another, and that this requires courage. It takes courage because we might risk showing ourselves to someone else, sharing our hurt or neediness with them, and they might reject us. We have to be willing to risk even more pain to get to that connection. But the people who are willing to do this are people who can overcome loneliness and forge authentic relationships. We are not brought together by our perfection, but by our shared struggles. Making those connections is what we try to do here. That's what I'm inviting us back to for another year together. We try to risk authenticity and be brave to share with each other our true selves. We try to be kind when people share their true selves with us. We strive to be the face of the holy for one another, giving each other the loving regard that is our understanding of the divine. We do this when we need companionship or help by sharing what we need, but we also do it in helping others by being present to their suffering with our own. We're not always perfect. I like to think of our church as a laboratory of vulnerability and care, a place where we practice being authentically human with each other, a place where we affirm that far from that Calvinist suspicion of every relationship except the relationship with the holy, we insist that our relationships with one another are the holy, at work within us and among us. Naomi and Ruth stood on the threshold of their connection, their grief spread out on every side. They could have retreated, each to her own people, each to her own sadness. But instead, Ruth took the risk of connection and said to Naomi, "Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge." She said to Naomi, "You're not alone. I'm here with you, and I will stay with you." May we take these risks and show each other the face of love in all we do. I love you all. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 126 in your gray hymnals, "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing." Please rise in body or spirit to sing. forth into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast that which is good, render to no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the afflicted, honor everyone. Love and serve the holy, rejoicing in the power of the Spirit forever. Amen. Please be seated.